Okay, so today, as it is our third class on English for Technical Communication, I, Mohaiminul, welcome you all back to this class. Okay, so today, as it is our third class, we will going to have some recap from the previous class, and then today we will be doing our note-taking session rigorously. Okay, we'll be doing note-taking today, and then we'll be doing some summarizing tips. I'll be giving you some summarizing tips, and then maybe from the next class we'll be summarizing. Or maybe today we'll be note-taking, but today I'll be giving you some chance for summarizing also. But today we will be doing only note-taking work. But theoretically we'll be doing note-taking and summarizing also. Okay?
Yes, sir.
So we already have talked about that. Prepare notes using phrases only. So tips to prepare note, only phrases, only those. I have already done a rigorous class as the previous class, so I have showed you how to take notes. Can you recall it? Can you recall that memory? আপনারা কি মেমোরিটা রিকল করতে পারছেন, যে বুঝতে পারছেন আমি যে গত ক্লাসে পড়িয়েছিলাম নোট টেকিং এর চান্সগুলো? ওকে, সো টুডে we'll be doing that again, no problem. Maybe আপনাদের মধ্যে অনেকে আসেননি, অনেকে প্রথমে এসেছেন. So I'd really appreciate if you take notes. Come on, write some things. If you have not seen these things, or if you have not if you were not presented at previous class, please write all of these. Right. If you have written it, you do not have to write it or rewrite it. But if it is not in your copy, then you have to write it. Come on, check it, everyone. Everyone. আপনাদের যদি এটা লেখা না থাকে লিখুন, আর যদি লেখা থাকে
গত ক্লাসে লিখতে এখন
না এখন আমার লেখা লাগবে না, জাস্ট একটু ওয়েট করুন। অনেকেই গত ক্লাসে আসেন। Okay. So basically these are the theories, and these will be applied within our work. Please do it fast. Yes, sir. Sir, sorry. Sorry, sir. Yes, you can come here. Come on. But no. If you want to take any picture, no. It has already been uploaded to your portal, student portal. No pictures. But if you cannot see it, then you can come to the first batch. No problem. So tips to prepare notes, basically prepare notes using phrases only, never use complete sentences. We already have talked about that. We will use the phrases, the short parts of a sentence. Just like if I want to take notes about today, Chief Advisor Dr. Yunus have said to the students, please go back to the classroom and do not disturb the country, and please maintain the law and order. Then we will be taking notes just like that. Dr. Yunus to students. Dr. Yunus to students. Maybe maintain peace. See, this is how we will be taking notes, so that we can recollect. Whenever, as a journalist or as a note taker, whenever I should go back to the home, go back to my home, I can recollect in memory. Okay, topic sentence of each paragraph is the main point of ideas affiliated. So basically, if any text, well, in your midterm examinations, you will be facing a text, okay, and you will be doing some note takings or paraphrasing. Basically, today we will teach, or I will teach you how to paraphrase. Okay, so tips to note taking already there, and I already have talked about that at the previous class, and that has been recorded, so you can find it on YouTube also. So let's talk about paraphrasing. Okay, there are some tips for paraphrasing. Number one, summarizing or paraphrasing. We will be doing one more important thing, that summarizing and paraphrasing side by side, so that we'll be teaching you one thing, but you'll be benefited with two things. See, I will be teaching you only one thing that you will be benefited by two things. So I will be teaching you summarizing and paraphrasing all together. Okay? So summarizing and paraphrasing. Summarizing or as paraphrasing for PH. Okay. So for summarization, basically, we need to paraphrase. Paraphrasing means doing the same thing, doing or having. Is it recording? Okay, so having the same message but in other words. Okay, having the same message but in other words. Okay, for example, if I say in 1971 our liberation war. Oh, please mind my handwriting. War happened. Okay. So in 1971, our liberation war happened. So see, if I can summarize it or paraphrase it, that means I can say it in other words. Can anyone try it? Come on, try it. Have a try. Say it in other words. Paraphrasing means saying the same thing in other words.
In 1971, we achieved freedom.
Okay, we achieved freedom, maybe. Well, we achieved freedom from Pakistanis in 1971. We won the liberation war at 1971. See, all of these basically conveying the same message.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yes, sir.
All these are conveying the same message but in different words. So basically that is called what? Paraphrasing. Paraphrasing means saying the same thing in other words. In other words. In other words, come on. It's easy, huh?
Yes, sir.
Saying the same thing in other words is called paraphrasing. But in summarizing, basically, if I tell you the story of we all heard about a story. Okay, come on, tell me a story. We all have heard about it. Tell me a story.
Trustee Board.
A thirsty crow. See, a thirsty crow. Yeah, there's a crow who was thirsty. Then he saw a pitcher filled with water, but whenever it comes to the pitcher, then he sees the water is in the below. So he thought that, okay, how can I get the water as I'm very much thirsty? So he said he saw some pebbles out there, just beside of the pitcher. So he collected the pebbles with his throat. Then he put those pebbles into the pitcher. Then the water level raised up. Then he drank the water.
Yes, sir.
See, that's the whole story. Well, we can summarize it. Well, this is a summarizing version. See, I've told you the summarizing version, but the long story was very long, huh?
Yes, sir.
So this is how summarization works. Summarizing means saying the same thing in some less words. Saying the same thing in some
Less words.
yes, saying the same thing with some less words. It's called
Summary.
yes. Saying some same thing with some less word is called summarizing. Saying same thing in other words called paraphrasing. Saying the same thing in other words
Yes, sir.
is paraphrasing. saying the same thing with some lesser words is called summarizing. That's right. See? Okay, so we already know these things, preparing short notes or how to take short notes, and we already know how to summarize some of the sentences or how to paraphrase some of the sentences. Am I correct? Okay. So I'll be giving you, I'll be writing here 3 sentences, we'll be paraphrasing, okay? Number 1. Anyone can tell this sentence, please, for me? Just read this sentence. Only this sentence. Sima.
Shima wants to buy an iPhone, but she doesn't have.
Okay, Sima wants to buy an iPhone, but she does not have the money. Sima wants to buy an iPhone, but she does not have the money. Can you paraphrase it? In other words, that means in other words. In other words, come on, say it. In other words, say it. Come on.
She might sport, that's why she can't buy that.
No, it's not summarize. It's not paraphrasing. Paraphrasing means the same thing with other words, in other words. The same thing in the other words.
Shima haven't enough money,
So
so
she cannot
buy
an iPhone. Okay, great. It could be a paraphrasing. Yeah, that's right. It could be a paraphrase version. Sima do not have any money, so she cannot buy an iPhone now. See? This is paraphrasing. But if we just summarize this, isn't it just like sound? Don't you think this will sound like Shima is a poor girl? Shima is a poor girl. Shima does not have any iPhone. She's poor. See, summarization happens just like that with some less words. Shima is a poor girl. She doesn't have any iPhone. Or Shima is poor, so does not have any iPhone. Summarization. That means it will be shortened. Okay. And paraphrasing will not shorten, but it will tell the same story in other words. It will tell the same story in other words. That's right. Okay, so we already have done that. Okay, let's see a video. So I already showed you the video, but we only have listened and learned from that video. But today we'll be taking some notes. I'll be doing this video twice for you. First one, I will not pause at any stage, but the second one I'll pause at maximum 3 stages. Okay, but in the meanwhile you'll be taking notes. What is the man talking about, and the data you will be taking notes in your notebook. Am I right? Have you got it?
Yes, sir.
That's right. Okay. Let's see the video. So I want you to turn the lights off. Okay. Okay. Oh. can I find that and how can I play that video?
I can start the video.
Yes, from here I can play it. Everyone listen to it very carefully, please.
Sound একটু কমে দিন, বেশি বুঝলেন?
What keeps us healthy and happy as we go through life? If you were going to invest now in your future best self, where would you put your time and your energy? There was a recent survey of millennials asking them what their most important life goals were, and over 80% said that a major life goal for them was to get rich. And another 50% of those same young adults said that another major life goal was to become famous. And we're constantly told to lean into work, to push harder and achieve more. We're given the impression that these are the things that we need to go after in order to have a good life. Pictures of entire lives, of the choices that people make and how those choices work out for them, those pictures are almost impossible to get. Most of what we know about human life, we know from asking people to remember the past. And as we know, hindsight is anything but 20/20. We forget vast amounts of what happens to us in life, and sometimes memory is downright creative. But what if we could watch entire lives as they unfold through time? What if we could study people from the time that they were teenagers all the way into old age to see what really keeps people happy and healthy? We did that. The Harvard study of adult development may be the longest study of adult life that's ever been done. For 75 years, we've tracked the lives of 724 men. Year after year, asking about their work, their home lives, their health, and of course asking all along the way without knowing how their life stories were going to turn out. Studies like this are exceedingly rare. Almost all projects of this kind fall apart within a decade because too many people drop out of the study, or funding for the research dries up, or the researchers get distracted, or they die, and nobody moves the ball further down the field. But through a combination of luck and the persistence of several generations of researchers, this study has survived. About 60 of our original 724 men are still alive, still participating in the study, most of them in their 90s. And we are now beginning to study the more than 2,000 children of these men. And I'm the fourth director of the study. Since 1938, we've tracked the lives of two groups of men. The first group started in the study when they were sophomores at Harvard College. They all finished college during World War II, and then most went off to serve in the war. And the second group that we followed was a group of boys from Boston's poorest neighborhoods. Boys who were chosen for the study specifically because they were from some of the most troubled and disadvantaged families in the Boston of the 1930s. Most lived in tenements, many without hot and cold running water. When they entered the study, all of these teenagers were interviewed, they were given medical exams. We went to their homes and we interviewed their parents. And then these teenagers grew up into adults who entered all walks of life. They became factory workers and lawyers and bricklayers and doctors. One president of the United States. Some developed alcoholism. A few developed schizophrenia. Some climbed the social ladder from the bottom all the way to the very top, and some made that journey in the opposite direction. The founders of this study would never in their wildest dreams have imagined that I would be standing here today, 75 years later, telling you that the study still continues. Every 2 years, our patient and dedicated research staff calls up our men and asks them if we can send them yet one more set of questions about their lives. Many of the inner city Boston men ask us, why do you keep wanting to study me? My life just isn't that interesting. The Harvard men never ask that question. To get the clearest picture of these lives, we don't just send them questionnaires. We interview them in their living rooms. We get their medical records from their doctors. We draw their blood. We scan their brains. We talk to their children. We videotape them talking with their wives about their deepest concerns. And when, about a decade ago, we finally asked the wives if they would join us as members of the study, many of the women said, you know, it's about time. So what have we learned? What are the lessons that come from the tens of thousands of pages of information that we've generated on these lives? Well, the lessons aren't about wealth or fame or working harder and harder. The clearest message that we get from this 75-year study is this: good relationships keep us happier and healthier, period. We've learned 3 big lessons about relationships. The first is that social connections are really good for us, and that loneliness kills. It turns out that people who are more socially connected to family, to friends, to community, are happier, they're physically healthier, and they live longer than people who are less well connected. And the experience of loneliness turns out to be toxic. People who are more isolated than they want to be from others find that they are less happy, their health declines earlier in midlife, their brain functioning declines sooner, and they live shorter lives than people who are not lonely. And the sad fact is that at any given time, more than 1 in 5 Americans will report that they're lonely. And we know that you can be lonely in a crowd and you can be lonely in a marriage. So the second big lesson that we learned is that it's not just the number of friends you have, and it's not whether or not you're in a committed relationship, but it's the quality of your close relationships that matters. It turns out that living in the midst of conflict is really bad for our health. High conflict marriages, for example, without much affection, turn out to be very bad for our health, perhaps worse than getting divorced. And living in the midst of good, warm relationships is protective. Once we had followed our men all the way into their 80s, we wanted to look back at them at midlife and to see if we could predict who was going to grow into a happy, healthy octogenarian and who wasn't. And when we gathered together everything we knew about them at age 50, it wasn't their middle-aged cholesterol levels that predicted how they were going to grow old. It was how satisfied they were in their relationships. The people who were the most satisfied in their relationships at age 50 were the healthiest at age 80. And good, close relationships seem to buffer us from some of the slings and arrows of getting old. Our most happily partnered men and women reported in their 80s that on the days when they had more physical pain, their moods stayed just as happy. But the people who were in unhappy relationships, on the days when they reported more physical pain, it was magnified by more emotional pain. And the third big lesson that we learned about relationships and our health is that good relationships don't just protect our bodies, they protect our brains. It turns out that being in a securely attached relationship to another person in your 80s is protective that the people who are in relationships where they really feel they can count on the other person in times of need, those people's memories stay sharper longer. And the people in relationships where they feel they really can't count on the other one, those are the people who experience earlier memory decline. And those good relationships, they don't have to be smooth all the time. Some of our octogenarian couples could bicker with each other day in and day out. But as long as they felt that they could really count on the other when the going got tough, those arguments didn't take a toll on their memories. So, this message that good, close relationships are good for our health and well-being, this is wisdom that's as old as the hills. Why is it so hard to get and so easy to ignore? Well, we're human. What we really like is a quick fix, something we can get that'll make our lives good and keep them that way. Relationships are messy and they're complicated, and the hard work of tending to family and friends, it's not sexy or glamorous. It's also lifelong. It never ends. The people in our 75-year study who were the happiest in retirement were the people who had actively worked to replace workmates with new playmates. Just like the millennials in that recent survey, many of our men, when they were starting out as young adults, really believed that fame and wealth and high achievement were what they needed to go after to have a good life. But over and over these 75 years, our study has shown that the people who fared the best were the people who leaned into relationships with family, with friends, with community. So what about you? Let's say you're 25, or you're 40, or you're 60. What might leaning into relationships even look like? Well, the possibilities are practically endless. It might be something as simple as replacing screen time with people time, or livening up a stale relationship by doing something new together, long walks or date nights, or reaching out to that family member who you haven't spoken to in years, because those all too common family feuds take a terrible toll on the people who hold the grudges. I'd like to close with a quote from Mark Twain. More than a century ago, he was looking back on his life, and he wrote this: "There isn't time, so brief is life, for bickerings, apologies, heartburnings, callings to account. There is only time for loving, and but an instant, so to speak, for that. The good life is built with good relationships." Thank you.